let me introduce to you a young rebel reporter who's joining us now from Calgary. You may recall him from when he went down to the Coutts border crossing. I remember sending Sydney and Kian Simone down there thinking, oh, they'll just stay a day or so. Well, those lads, I think they went down there without a change of clothes for 11 days, and it was bloody cold. But they were the voice of the people, and they showed what was going on in the Coutts blockade. And in fact, we've done documentaries based on their work. Joining us now from Calgary is Sydney Fizzard. Sydney, great to see you again. How you doing?
Likewise, it's an absolute pleasure, and today of all days, it's certainly going to be an interesting night, so thank you guys for having me on.
Well, come on, you've done great work, and you know what, I believe that your work in Coutts, you and Kian Simone were down there, was it 11 days? And then you went back for more, am I right on that? Did I get my number right?
Yeah, my final count was 16 days down there, so
16
it was
days.
quite
embedded with the truckers, and here's my point. The media party, the mainstream media, the regime media, either ignored that or disparaged it. They did not tell the truth about it. You and Kian were embedded with the truckers. You told the story every day. You were literally in the saloon. You were in the meetings as the men spoke and strategized. And you beamed out the news every day. And you brought the Ottawa trucker convoy that was so dominant in Parliament Hill. You brought that to Alberta because you know the old saying, Sid, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear, it doesn't make a sound. It's a very Zen question, but it's actually a very real question. You've got truckers and farmers and allies blocking the border crossing between Montana and Alberta, but no one reports on it. Did it happen? And the answer is no, and that's why you and Kian Simone being there made it the #1 news story in Alberta, and it was the proximate cause of Jason Kenney blinking and removing the vaccine mandates, and his general mishandling of things eventually led to his ouster as premier. That, in turn, caused a leadership race in the UCP, and that is what we will learn the result of tonight. In a way, Sid, butterfly effect. You and your colleague tipped a domino, and that domino fell and hit another domino, and here we are, and now we got our whole election on hands. You're that journalist that helped. I think you deserve some paternity for that, Sid. That's me just tooting your horn a bit.
Well, it's much appreciated. And I can say as well, I still remember the moment we had Kian Simone, who's behind the camera right now, actually confirm with authorities after Jason Kenney had made an announcement that peaceful demonstrators or supporters of peaceful demonstrators had physically assaulted RCP officers. And if we weren't there, we don't know if the public would know that that was actually an untrue statement. But thank you to Kian Simone behind us. He brought that to light. And later on in the blockade, there were excavators that were sabotaged by RCMP on private property with the permission of the property owner. So there were a multitude of actions that took place during the Coutts blockade, and it really is questionable as to whether or not these events would be revealed to the public, at least in the way that we presented them, which we try and do everything we can to bring you the truth and the other side of the story. If we weren't there, it is questionable as to how much of that story would have gotten out there.
That was such an important moment because Jason Kenney said authoritatively and without any doubt that the truckers had, I think that he said they drove their vehicle into the police, and all of a sudden it changed the color of things, the character of things, from a peaceful protest into a violent uprising. And you were there, and in fact, you talked to the RCMP. I think we have a clip of it, and I'd like to ask our team in the control room. I just want to show that. I know it's going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I think in many ways, Sid, this election is an echo and a redo and a do-over of the pandemic and the lockdowns. Here's what I mean by that. The vengeance and the rage directed at Danielle Smith has been primarily for what? Part of it has been about the Sovereignty Act. That's true. But the majority of it has been because she dared take the civil liberties side of the lockdown debate. And it's as if not only the Kenneyites, but the media want their vengeance on the truckers, on the dissidents. And it's remarkable. So yeah, I think we've got that clip now. And I just want to play it because you mentioned it. And this is an example of our citizen journalism fact-checking a government lie in real time and stopping what I think would have been a gross defamation of all the truckers. That's why we were there. Here, take a look at this clip.
Also received reports in the last hour of people allied with the protesters assaulting RCMP officers.
That's a lie.
Unfortunately, it was a relatively minor collision, but a confrontation which led to an assault that took place as a direct result of that collision.
And that was an assault on an RCMP officer?
No, that was an assault between the two civilians, between a protester and a civilian.
So Jason Kenney's statement was not true at the press release?
I can tell you what I just told you, sir.
Okay.
But what Jason Kenney said yesterday is not okay. And it's time to answer. It's time to answer. And we just as people want our freedoms back. And we're here to stay until that happens.
All right, thanks for that clip. So did you see what happened there? Jason Kenney said they assaulted a cop. And the cop said, no, just a protester and a civilian had a little bit of a scuffle. No one assaulted the RCMP. That was a lie. But the rest of the media were repeaters of the lie. And I say, Sid, what have been the most vicious, vitriolic attacks on Danielle Smith by the NDP and by the CBC war room for Justin Trudeau? It has all been on dredging up every journalistic comment made by Danielle Smith when she was a radio commentator, expressing her deep concern about civil liberties, about vax mandates. They are trying to get revenge on the people, the truckers, the movement, the civil libertarians who dethroned Kenney and broke the fever in Canada, got rid of the vax mandates. I've said this before, the truckers broke the false consciousness. They broke the fever. They broke the false unanimity, nationally, of course, but in Alberta too. And that's what set things in motion for this election. Sheila, looks like you want to weigh in.
I do. I have some news, but I don't want to take up too much of Sid's time while we have him. But it is directly related to some commentary that a candidate made about the RCMP at Coutts that ultimately disqualified him under Jason Kenney's leadership. But I don't want to take up Sid's time while we have it. It's just because we just got word that I think Rimbey Rocky Mountain House Sundry, their results will be delayed until nearly 10 o'clock tonight because apparently they had a tough time opening up the building where they're the polling station. And that is already a very serious riding to watch. But I can get into that in a minute while we have Sid. I don't know if it's necessary to talk about it right this second.
Okay. Now, I mean, I haven't been to Rocky Mountain House or Sundry in a while, but my recollection is that that's about as right-wing as it gets.
Yes.
Wrong?
Well, you know what? No, you're not wrong. I'll fill everybody in on the backstory here. So Rimbey Rocky Mountain House Sundry, that's cowboy country. The Cowboy Trail runs right through that riding. And it is represented by Jason Nixon. Now, Jason Nixon was seen atop Sky Palace with Jason Kenney. He was the Parks and Environment Minister. We used to call it Parks, Environment, and Climate Change. One good thing, Jason Kenney struck that from the title. So he's the Parks and Environment Minister, but he was atop Jason Kenney's Sky Palace booze party while everybody else was locked down. So there was an insurgent MLA, potential nominee candidate. What happened was they staged a coup on the board, replaced all of Jason Nixon's people with their own people. The potential nominee candidate was Tim Hoven. He's the Reeve in the area. So he's already a local politician, very well liked, and he's a rancher. They stage a coup. They take control of the board because they're going to get rid of Nixon. This is last spring. Jason Kenney then disqualifies Tim Hoven from running as a nomination candidate because he made disparaging remarks about the RCMP at Coutts. Even though it was the will of the people that Tim Hoven be representing Rimbey Rocky Mountain House Sundry and not Jason Nixon, the people no longer wanted Jason Nixon. So now, as it turns out, Tim Hoven is running as an independent. and he just might win this riding. Wow. Now, he has said, if I win as an independent, I will vote with the UCP. I am a conservative, but he had to go around the party infrastructure that Jason Kenney put in place to prevent him from running against Jason Kenney's friend. It's very, very strange what's happening in Rimbey Rocky Mountain House. But this is the problem with Alberta conservatives, is when you're not conservative enough, we stage these coups all over the place. And sometimes it fractures the party, and sometimes it ends up being drama at the constituency level. You know,
isn't that the truth? And historically, Alberta parties are replaced by challengers from the right. And new challengers, often new parties. Isn't that interesting? That's one of the challenges that Danielle Smith had. Remember, she was an outsider. She was not a sitting MLA. So she was one of those who were agitating in her own way for Jason Kenney to be defenestrated. And then she beat, what was it, 6 other candidates? I can't remember the number. Gave him a bit of a whooping. And she was this outsider, this usurper, as some would say. And so she takes over a party, and obviously the party grassroots supporter, but she's also taking over a caucus and a cabinet. And by the way, Jason Kenney refused to even meet with her in a transition meeting. Typically, when a president or a prime minister hands the baton to the successor, they put aside their enmity and they say, all right, here's the ropes and here's how to do it. Jason Kenney refused to even meet with Danielle Smith out of courtesy. He had a pout. He took his marbles and ran off to a law firm called Bennett Jones. And so Danielle Smith has a cabinet full of Kenney loyalists, a caucus of Kenney loyalists, and not all of them had accepted her leadership. Some of them were quite, clearly not enthused with them. If she wins tonight, and I think she might well, her troubles are not necessarily over, because they might say, okay, good, now that we've been reelected, let's get rid of Danielle Smith and put in a proper heir to the Kenney throne. That might be Tyler Shandro. That might be Travis Taves. I don't know. I'm engaging in speculation, but let me say this a different way. Danielle Smith has to put her own imprint on the new government. She has to make it hers. It can't just be her jumping on a horse that Jason Kenney trained. And her troubles are not, even if she wins tonight, her troubles are not yet done. Now, Adam, what do you think? Am I overstating the disagreements within that party?
Oh, no, certainly not. But I mean, I think and I do want to ask Sid one more question before we go, but I'll answer your question first. I think that perhaps off the bat, with some of the people deciding that they weren't going to seek re-election, and some of the candidates, the leadership hopefuls not rejoining the party, well, a number of those people have been brought back in the fold, whether it's Rajan Sani, Brian Jean has been intimately connected with this campaign all the way throughout, as well as Rebecca Schultz. So many of the front runners who perhaps seemed at odds and perhaps seemed more aligned with Jason Kenney, they've now been sort of reintegrated, and they're intimately involved within this party right across the board. So I think Danielle Smith, while the media has perhaps characterized her as this extreme figure, and we've seen some perhaps inaccurate representations of some of the things she said, I think within the party there's been a bit of a healing and a bit of a coming together. So that was there originally, and I have heard many state that there were sort of some landmines left within the party by some Kenney loyalists on their way out the door. But I think in the face of all this adversity, whether it be hostile press, whether it be infighting within the Conservative Party, Danielle Smith seems to have prevailed, brought people together. She seems to be able to connect people in a way that creates that sense of unity. I kind of joked the other day, Conservatives have been talking forever about a big tent party. Well, the rally we saw in Calgary the other night was one of the first literal big tent events I've seen. There's people of all backgrounds. Alex Dollywell, one of our other great reporters who will be joining us later, commented on this as well. It was so many people, whether they be freedom-oriented, whether they be red Tories, social conservative, it didn't really matter. They seemed to be coming together and rallying behind this person. And I think the incessant attacks that she's endured, well, I think they may have contributed to that. They set her up as such a villain. They set her up as such an opponent. And then when people actually took a little bit of time to get to know Danielle Smith, they're like, well, this isn't quite what I'm being told. That seems to have rallied people together.
You know, I think she really exceeded expectations in the leadership debate, and the NDP. I think that the sort of in the closing moments they came across as a little bit sour and negative, which is contrary to Rachel Notley's great strength. Her great strength is that she is a smiling, friendly, normal, neighborly woman, attractive but not too attractive. Someone both men and women can say, I like her. She seems nice. I'd like her as a neighbor. She seems kind. She's good with animals. She's good with babies. And my point is, it's the feeling that this is a normal woman. And no, she's not a crazy socialist. I wish that she was my neighbor. So Rachel Notley's great success is that she had a disastrous, shocking, radical, frankly, communist edge to her substance. In fact, she used to wear a Che Guevara wristwatch, but she had such a nice smile. She's got a great smile when she smiles with her eyes. And I know you might be thinking, Ezra, why are you talking so much about physical appearances?
Yes,
why? Because how do you think Justin Trudeau won? Because of how he looks and feels, not because of what he thinks. And that's how it is. How does someone look and feel? And the media party managed to paint Danielle Smith, who I think looks quite pleasant also. They painted her as an agitator, as a chaotic risk and danger, as an extremist. And it's the feelings. There wasn't enough talk about substance, carbon taxes, submitting to Ottawa. If this had been a campaign about substance, it would have been an absolute United Conservative Party Danielle Smith blowout. But it has been a campaign about feelings and fears and emotions, which is how the left usually wins. But I think maybe Rachel Notley overplayed her hand. Adam, what do you think?
Sid has to get back to me. If I can ask Sid one question really quick, because I think he can bring a unique perspective to this that perhaps us as born Albertans don't have. Obviously, Ezra, you're out east. You're still a Calgary boy at heart, I think, but you're out east. Sheila, you're an Alberta girl. I'm an Alberta boy. Sid, now an Alberta boy, but he is a fresh incomer. From your perspective, as someone coming in from the outside, when you came here, obviously you were with Rebel already, but what was it that you were seeking? And do you think that some people who are maybe supporting the NDP don't understand why Alberta has that Alberta advantage?
Well, I can speak. When I came here, in a sense, there was that vision of the Texas of Canada, the Texas of Canada. But when I got here, it was actually a week or 2 weeks from the starting point of the restrictions exemption program. And of course, you asked Jason Kenney about this directly. Are we going to have a vaccine passport here in Alberta? And what was his response? No, we're not going to do that. And a couple of weeks later, he basically did the same thing with a different name, called it the restrictions exemption program. So from the onset, and being new to Alberta politics, of course, I saw this, and I saw it evolve eventually into my time at the Coutts Blockade, where there were these two factions within the United Conservative Party, and they filled it out, and Danielle Smith rose out of the ashes of that conflict, in a sense. But now, moving into this election with Rachel Notley and Danielle Smith, there's the two camps on the UCP versus the NDP party, and neither camp on the UCP wants an NDP party. Both of them see that as the worst case scenario. So certainly now I think there's going to be more unity in the United Conservative Party. And then, as Ezra mentions, after the election is done, there might be some shenanigans that go on internally, but they want this win. Everybody in Alberta pretty much wants this win, except for those who would support the NDP.
All right, Sid, it's great to see you. Adam, thanks for that.